So the waiting's finally over. Cheltenham Gold Cup Day is here, and as part of our build-up here at Timeform Towers, I've managed to get a Timeform expert every single day to run through the card and hopefully pick out a few winners. And it's Dan Barber's turn, and Dan, I haven't seen you in ages.
I know, it's been about 3 days, mate.
I know, I've missed
captivity.
You. Yeah.
Don't get out much, do it this time, yeah.
No, not
basically
at all.
Stuck in the office, but
yeah, we were a lot chirpier, I think, a week ago.
Yeah.
Has it caught up with you now?
The bad beats, the God's own anti-post position, that was one of the best I've had at Cheltenham. He somehow conspired to not finish in the 3 after making 2 of the worst mistakes you'll ever see.
I know, he looked like he was coming to win as well.
Yeah. That was hard. That was hurtful. Taken Desai, win only. Should have backed him each way. That was a bit of a killer.
25-1.
Yes. But Jack Adam, who we'll discuss later, can hopefully sort out all the problems.
It's all about the Jack today. So straight into the first race, the Triumph Hurdle, and it's seemingly, anyway, in the market, dominated by the JP McManus pair in Defi Desai and Charlie Parks. One has been flawless so far, the other one has put people off with a Kempton run. Yeah. Where do you stand on the race as a whole?
It makes it difficult, doesn't it, the fact that one such prominent owner with his numerous Cheltenham winners holds the key to this, in essence. I do think the 2 British runners are a step ahead of the Irish. Mega Fortune's a very solid, sort of traditional trademark Triumph Hurdle type, really. A solid handicapper on the flat who stays the trip well, has improved no end since joining Elliott, and he probably is just about the pick of the Raiders. And what a week they've had. I mean, it's been ridiculous, hasn't it? It's been so one-sided. But I look at, as we discussed last week, I mean, if you're going to fast forward to the Tuesday of 12 months' time, which of these horses is going to be contesting the Champion Hurdle? For me, it is one of the McManus horses, maybe both of the McManus horses. Now, Charlie Parks was around 8-1, 9-1 earlier in the week. His market strength is pretty telling, isn't it? There'll come a point, though, where people realise that's too short and he'll probably start to drift back out again. But it is interesting, A, that he's even running the race after a fall, because all the suggestion was that he wouldn't.
It was a crashing fall as well, and it's the fall that ruled Barry Geraghty out. So
it's had wide-ranging repercussions. And I, for one, I thought, well, it's hardly the ideal prep, and I didn't think Henderson was the type to risk him, but he must show them loads at home. I think I heard something that he's the best 4-year-old they've ever trained. When you're discussing this about a man who had Binocular, for instance, who was such a strong travelling second in the Supreme a few years ago to Captain Seaby, it gives you an indication of the regard in which he must be held. However, we're now not able to get the 8 and 9-1. We're being asked to take 4s, 7-2 about a horse that does arrive here on the back of a less than ideal prep, and that less than ideal prep was a crunching fall. As it happens, I think he might still have won that race, despite the wider opinion, because I get the impression sometimes that Geraghty's very good at... he's probably got more under him than it looks, and I got the feeling that horse was just coming back under the bridle. He's an inexperienced horse. Compared to Master Blue Eyes, he certainly lacks a bit of know-how. And maybe that will find him out again. And there's still the jumping query, isn't there, because he has hit the deck. But the roundabout way, what we're going to say here is that Defi Desai is the bet in this. Even if Charlie Parks improves past you, I just think you take it on the chin. But Defi Desai has got a level of form and has shown a level of promise that marks him down as the best juvenile hurdler so far, certainly on the book. He made mistakes at Chepstow, but he'd already sewn the race up by then when he thrashed Evening Hush. He was arrived on a roll that day. He's got loads of ability. He's hardly come off the bridle to win his races, and I don't think his jumping is that big a concern. I don't think the conditions are that much of a concern. Some have said that he definitely wants the mud. Well, until he proves so, I'd rather give him the benefit of the doubt. And now it's got a bit closer in the market between him and Charlie Parks. I think I'll have to stick with the form horse.
So you mentioned that Master Blue Eyes, seemingly you're not a fan of his Kempton win. Is there anything else in the field? I mean, people who followed the flat last season will recognise Land and Hope and Glory. Yeah,
he's an intriguing runner. I sort of thought he might be more of a Fred Winter type. You know, a lot of these horses will have a better chance of revealing their flat ability when they go into a handicap, rather than a conditions race where sometimes they're not as truly run these races. They can be a bit muddly. Hopefully we get a gallop today. There should be one. It's a sufficiently big field. I think we're struggling for odds. It is an each way horse. You've got Mega Fortune, but I do think he's struggling to beat certainly Defi Desai. And if Charlie Parks is what everybody's telling us he is, and he'll struggle to beat him too in terms of ability. But he's a hard-knocking, as I say, a classic, really archetypal Triumph type. The sound, robust handicapper off the flat with a pretty good level of ability as well. He obviously beat a couple of these last time in the most recent start, reversing previous form. So there is a lot to like about him, but he meets a horse in Defy de Soy I genuinely think could be a champion hurdle contender next year. We know that's not a particularly strong division at the minute. Bouvardere will be back over fences, I'd imagine, next season. Or,
do you think?
Oh, he could be. I mean, it's not a guarantee that he goes for it again. So we'll stick with Defy. I think he's a classy operator.
He's your nap on the microsite today, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it's more that. It's more the price movement really in the last few days. Yes, it's very eye-catching that Charlie Park has taken all this cash and been shortened so dramatically, but it's now got to the point where there isn't a huge amount between them. At the start of the week, there was plenty between them, and the long and the short of it is Charlie Park's arrives there on the back of a heavy fall that's injured its rider, and no, not that North Healy isn't a more than able deputy. In fact, I'd possibly even preferring to Geraghty at times, and he's clearly in red-hot form at the minute, but it's not ideal that the horse is heading into the cut and thrust of a Triumph hurdle, having tipped up on his most recent start.
So Defy de Soy in the first, and straight on to the second race, the county hurdle, one of the tougher races of the day, and one for plot horses really. We've got a 9-1 favourite here in North Hill Harvey. We've got a Triumph winner in Ivanovic Gorbatov, graded winners in Winter Escape and Arctic Fire, a lovable Rogue in Lamy Surge. Where on earth do you stand in this sort of race?
I don't think he's that lovable. Hateful Rogue. I was really keen on it. It was really annoying this because I thought Mick Jaggs was probably one of the most solid handicap horses of the week. I thought the race would suit him perfectly. Hope he goes to Aintree now or something like that to try and get some attempt at winning the sort of pot that I think he deserves. He's always looked a 150 plus horse when he's with Harry Fry and Elliott since found the key. That's by the by. He doesn't run. You're probably looking at, as you say, a couple of those that look to have been saved for this. Two in particular, both JP McManus, Ivanovic Gorbatov. I mean, how many Triumph hurdle winners then get campaigned to win a county hurdle? They tend to be going the next step to the champion, but since Aintree and since the start of the season, you almost get the impression that they've had this in mind all along. I'd almost have preferred him in the longer distance race, but it's not a big deal. He's fully effective at the trip. He's back at the scene and where he won the Triumph, which is his finest hour so far. Conditions are different. He's now got a different type of headgear on, which he wore on the flat actually. And bear in mind, he had 2 starts on the flat and reached a Timeform rating in the 100s. I mean,
that's a serious feat, that.
Yeah, it is. It's a testament definitely to how talented this horse is. Maybe he's got his own ideas about the game. The niggle you have is that, similar to Charlie Park, the price has started to go. It's not like this is a long-range plan that has gone under the radar. Now, I think people are pretty wise to what might have been happening. And the other one is Winter Escape, who, if you'd have told me that we'd reached spring 2017 and he'd been running off a mark of 140, I'd have said you were stupid, because he looked a potential champion hurdle type last season. He was so impressive visually in his 3 races. Had just the one out in this season. It was much softer ground in the Great Wood behind the likely favourite for this race, North Hill Harvey. He didn't fire, but he wasn't given a hard time. And surely it's not coincidence that he's not been seen since. I imagine they're happy with 140. The likelihood was that conditions at Cheltenham would be seemingly more suitable, i.e. closer to top of the ground, and they've kept him fresh, saved him for the race. Whatever I do in this race, I'll have to keep Winter Escape on side, and I'll probably have to keep Ivanovic Gorbatov on side. But looking for something that I think will run a race at a price and has place options, I'll go with Renetti. He's Timeform top rated. He's got a Timeform squiggle because he's a character, to say the least. But I think he's been prepped for this race, and he's the absolutely ideal type for a county. Maybe he'll get on the run-in and he'll dog it and turn it in, but you know he'll travel strongly. Walsh wasn't hard on him the other day. I do sense that they've been building up to a crescendo for this race, and they will go a gallop surely. There aren't a load of obvious pace angles, admittedly. There aren't a handful who you think, well, he's guaranteed to lead, but it is a 20-odd runner handicap hurdle. There should be a pace, and I can see him sidling through the field. In terms of ability, he might be the very best in this race. We can back him at an each-way price, and that's the good angle with him, really. Unless he completely turns it in, you know he's going to travel well for a long way. Now, he might not do it off the bridle, but if he gets there going strongly, you'll struggle to find 4 or 5 to beat him. So I think that's the way to play it. But if you're playing on Betfair, do keep Ivanovic Gorbatov and Winter Escape on side, because both could be stones in hand at the mark. They certainly could be £10 or £12 anyway. So if one of them clicks, they'll probably win. But I do like Renetti's prospects as a perfect type for the race in terms of how it should develop, and also we've got the each way part on side there as well.
So it could be a very good start to the day for JP McManus.
It could indeed, yeah. I mean, we don't want to say he's nailed on to win the Triumph, but it's highly likely. It's an odds-on chance on the market that he will own the winner of that race. And you've obviously got Land of Hope and Glory as well, you discussed briefly. And then in the county, he's got 2 extremely live runners.
So into the Albert Bartlett, and this is quite a competitive race. So you've got Death Duty, who is 4 out of 4 so far. You've got Augusta Kate, who's very likeable, very good in bumpers last year. And the question, how close would she have got to Death Duty in that race in Ireland if she hadn't have fallen at the last? And then you've got the types of Holstone, the World's End improving all the time. What's the angle in this race?
Well, if it wasn't for the fact that the Twiston Davies stable has not been pulling up any trees, I mean, it's been appalling, really, hasn't it? Since Ballyandy had a luckless passage through the Supreme, they've really recovered. They've had disappointments left, right, and centre. So there's a niggle with that. But I mean, people were saying that about Mullins after the first couple of days. It just shows you that it's not a category that in race analysis that's for the short termists. You've got to take a longer view of these very small sample sizes, and people are trying to draw hard and fast conclusions over the state of a whole stable. It's ridiculous, really. Clearly, you'd rather have seen a few Holstone stable mates run better, but he's an extremely likeable horse, this, and however the stable's been in the lead up to the festival, it's not mattered to him because he's run his race every single time, be it 3 miles, 2.5, got loads of Cheltenham experience. He's got that form with West Approach, who then boosted it when he was placed behind, you know what I mean, Harry at Cheltenham. So his form lines are fine, absolutely no problem with those, and he's a very hardy, strong to staying type who tends to win this race. And if the Irish lads are to be believed in Gordon Elliott's connection, not just him but I think his head lad, etc. The rest might as well not bother turning up because he's already had 5 winners and he considers Death Duty his best chance by all accounts. So I don't doubt that he's the best prospect in this race, but many a funny result has happened in the Albert Bartlett. It's an absolute slog. It's the sternest test of stamina over hurdles of the week because you're dealing with novices and it's hard for a lot of them. They're weak horses to get home, and a few might get a rush of blood to the head. It was a similar case last year when, you know what I mean, Harry won the race. He was hard under pressure in 6th or 7th after the second last, and his stamina kicked in. You saw Champers and Ice Barters Hill, who've been going at it, they weakened. That tends to be the way the Albert Bartlett goes, and if that's the case, it is a step up in trip and it's a different examination for Death Duty. Even if he loses, it doesn't mean it's a knock on his potential, and it doesn't mean he won't stay the trip in time. But the combination of a hike in distance and a race that's likely to be a slog is enough to put me off at that sort of price, and I'll go with the more battle-hardened Holstone, who's a really tough nut, genuine as they come, and you can basically put him anywhere in the race as well. He's shown that he doesn't mind making the running, he can track it. Just hope Twiston Davies has a better run through in the stable. His father, the trainer, is a bit more fortunate because he's had a pretty miserable week.
Okay, so Holstone in the Albert Bartlett.
I mean, others to consider. I mean, Augusta Kate, I loved her from the day I first saw it, when I saw her win her first bumper, but she did win over 23 furlongs on hurdling debut. I wouldn't have thought she was a 3-miler, hand on heart.
Would
and
she
certainly
be
not
Death Duty?
I don't think she would, no. I think over that trip, Death Duty would have found more than her. So
because he was struggling when she went. Well, seemingly he was under pressure.
He was under pressure.
With the wrong word, but she was making a race of it.
Yeah, she definitely was. That's the sort of mare she is. She's really, really good. But when you see how he stretched away on the running at 2.5, you'd expect that he would have just been able to resist her. And I still think there's a stamina query. I just don't. When you see the burst of pace she showed to win her first starting bumpers, I know it was a lesser race, admittedly, and then you see the turn of foot and a degree of stamina to win the Punchestown Mares bumper against Forge Meadow, I wouldn't have had a mark down as a 3-miler, and she's not bred to be a 3-miler necessarily. So I'd be happy to overlook her. The World's End was considering progressive for Tom George. Stables had a tremendous season. He's added to that and been part of it. He was good at Haydock last time in not a great trial for the race, admittedly, traditionally, but it's still one that proves a horse's stamina. He looked there like he'd stay 3 miles, no problem. Penhill, ex-flat horse, tends to race a bit lazily and does his running late, but equally, I'd still be slightly concerned about him getting 3 miles. So it could be a race that falls apart completely, this, due to the examination that it provides, and hopefully Holstone, the hardy tough one, is the one that emerges in front.
Okie dokie. So on to the big one of the week, the Cheltenham Gold Cup, and I thought we'd buzz through. I know we spoke about this in length on Thursday last week, so I thought we'd just buzz through as quickly as possible, horse by horse. So to start in race card order is Bristol de Mai, and we talked about him, how impressive he was at Haydock in the Peter Marsh and has flopped since, and you mentioned that Haydock generally tends to flatter stayers.
I think it does, yeah, I don't know why. But there's been several instances down the years where horses that appear to stay a trip really well at Haydock on the flat course there haven't translated it to other tracks. Well, Sylvian Conti is a good example. He never got home at Cheltenham in his life. He needs oxygen on the running. And I think Bristol de Mai possibly falls into that category. If you normally see a horse winning a soft ground handicap around a big track at 3 miles, you think, well, yeah, of course he'll stay the Gold Cup trip, but I'm not sure it's a like-for-like comparison, and I think there is a stamina doubt of Bristol de Mai. There's also well-being doubt. He was lame when we'd last seen him. We've discussed niggles over the yard as regards Holstone, and there's an ability doubt as well. Is he really good enough to win this race?
So he's got questions to answer, and another one who impressed in a handicap is Champagne West. Absolutely bolted up in the Thyestes, pulled up in the Ryanair last year. Has he got an ability doubt as well?
I think it does have an ability doubt, and he's also, the jumping still will remain a concern for me. De Bromhead is a master at getting horses to leap better, and he's a better jumper now than he was in his time with Philip Hobbs, but still in the back of your mind that in a race like the Gold Cup, which will be a punishing test and there'll be a strong pace, the stayers will be to the fore, making sure that they can try and run the finish out of the likes of Q-Card, etc. You would have to question whether he will cope. He got the softest of soft leads. Say it was a big field competitive handicap, one of the most valuable in Ireland. He got a ridiculously cheap lead, and that just won't happen today. I can see him making mistakes. I can see him wilting.
So on to a really familiar name, Q-Card, who, again, another one for the Haydock argument. You know, is there still a question mark on whether he stays? He was seemingly back towards his best last time at Ascot, but you know, we mentioned last week that you thought he wouldn't have won the Gold Cup had he stood up against Don Cossack. Do you still think that he's got something to prove?
I do, yeah. I mean, we take the sectional this season. It's still 4 furlongs from home. I mean, it's half a mile, and it was at that point when he tipped up where the likes of Don Cossack and Jacadam were really getting into top stride. Maybe to finish second. I don't think he'd have beaten Don Cossack. And the more I look at it and watch the race back, Jacadam's so strong at the finish himself in pulling clear of Don Poley that I think he'd have probably beaten Q-Card as well. There's a real niggle here for punters, isn't there? Because you're being asked to take 5-1 about Q-Card, which on form is a perfectly acceptable price. But if he'd have completed last year and shown that he doesn't stay, we'd have been talking about a 14-1 chance here. So he's 5-1 with still a stamina doubt hanging over his head. His form since has been more inconsistent than at any other stage in his career, I'd say, apart from that season where the wheels completely came off. He was poor at Punchestown, lacklustre at Kempton in the King George, and his 2 wins either side have been in uncompetitive race for the class that have been blown wide open, and he's won by a wide margin. But Coneygree, I mean, it was a quick time, there's no getting away from that. But Coneygree was off a huge absence, clearly needed it, and hasn't been seen since with an injury. So what really is that form worth on the book? And it's a totally different set of circumstances to what he faced in a Gold Cup. He's an 11-year-old as well. I don't even think he's that far clear of Jacadam in terms of ability, if he's clear at all. And if you're going to have a match bet as to which one's most likely to be suited by the demands of a Gold Cup, we know it's Jacadam. He's been there twice.
So Q-Card one to avoid then. So that sets us up very nicely for Jacadam, back for more again, second the last 2 years, and is this a weaker race? And if so, is the form of those 2 seconds good enough to win today?
It is, and who's to say that this horse can't find a bit more, because his career has been one of gradual progress. he ran in a Gold Cup first at the age of 6. Not many do. He's now 8. That's often the time when a horse is having his first crack at the race. So the experience that he's had in those 2 performances will stand him in good stead. It's also shown that he's a thorough stayer who's well suited by demands of a Gold Cup, sound jumper. And the key thing as well to make his winning claims all the more compelling for me is the run-up he's had to the race this year. No fall in the bet, right, where he sustained a bad cut and it was a race against time to get him fit. He's had just 2 starts, so he's fresh. Q-Card's had several, just to name but one. And he's clearly had this race in mind for the whole season. Was good in the John Durkan, form that's been boosted since. And then the Lexus was a silly race that didn't go his way. But the way he was staying on at the end suggests to me, the ability's still there. I think he'll reverse form with the winner from that race, Ising John. And Outlander, and I'd be very confident that Jack Adam, if something beats him, they win the Gold Cup as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so very strong on Jack Adam. Next up in the card, I can't see him running, so my Empire Dirt was 4th in the Ryanair yesterday. If he does run, surely it's too big an ask.
Yeah, to back up so quickly, I mean, he's a highly unlikely runner, but I do wonder if now they are ruined, and I was of the opinion that they'd chosen right for him, going for the Ryanair. I wonder if they will now be ruined connections, not saving him for the Gold Cup, because he looked to lack pace yesterday, and that wouldn't have been a question mark over the longer trip of the Cheltenham Gold Cup.
We've got a 100-1 shot next, but an Irish Cavalier. He did win the Charlie Hall at the start of the season. The ground seemingly coming back into his flavour, but is it in a big ability gap in this sort of race?
It is. It was a weak Charlie Hall. Q-Card, there's another race we didn't mention where Q-Card underperformed. Now, some said he went for home too soon. Now, I wasn't having that. He shouldn't have been headed 3 out if he'd gone for home too soon. He was a cut above those on pre-race form. Irish Cavalier was the beneficiary, but he's been mixed since. Hard to see him being good enough to win a Gold Cup. His odds reflect his chance, really.
Next up is one for the Shrewdies, really. Manila Rocco won the 4-miler last year.
Not for me, then.
Fell in the Irish Gold Cup. Unseated, in the Irish Gold Cup. So didn't really get a chance to show how good he is. Is it a big step up again?
Well, judge him on Native River, because Native River probably should have won that race last year, the National Hunt Chase. He made a very bad mistake, was coming back for more at the end. Manila Rocco, however, did win it, and I had him down as a potential Gold Cup type at the start of the season. It's just things haven't gone smoothly. It's not ideal to be coming into the race off the back of successive non-completions. Pearler of a fall in the race Many Clouds won at Aintree, and that's possibly the piece of form that gives you most encouragement, because Many Clouds then went on to beat Thistlecrack, and it wasn't out of the question that Manila Rocco was going to give him a race at Aintree, and that was an improved Many Clouds. It has to have been, judged on what he did at Cheltenham next time in the Cotswolds, sadly the day we lost him. In some ways, yes, Manila Rocco, because of the residual potential, still a young horse, still unexposed over long distances, but I want to see him going in there on a sounder footing, and there has been money for him, so I wonder if the price has slightly gone now.
You mentioned Many Clouds, and this is just completely theoretically speaking, just out of interest more than anything. It was no secret how much Oliver Sherwood rated him, and with there being no Thistlecrack in the race, I know he beat him. Where would he be in the market? Or where would he be as a chance?
I think it'd be single figures. You've got to win against Thistlecrack to your name. You know that it's clear, whatever metric you judge it, that he's a better horse this year than even when he was a better horse this year than even when he won the Grand National. What the Grand National proved was that he stays extremely well, as the Cotswold Chase proved that he stayed extremely well. So it's sad that he won't be here. We'd have added a new dimension to the race, because he'd have been one of the pace forces, and he'd have really served it up to them. Personally, don't think he'd have been necessarily good enough to win the race, but I think he'd have had claims to be in the 3 or 4 maybe.
So on to what is your each way chance in the race, and more of that. We know all about him. Could this be his year?
Well, it's a tricky phrase with each way, because ordinarily you wouldn't back a horse with his profile each way very often, but you suppose you are getting 4s a place around that if you're getting quarters of the odds. And look, let's break him down. He's the only horse to have given Annie Power £7 and a beating. He did that in the World Hurdle, was absolutely brilliant that day. It was only on about his 6th start of his career, so very long on ability, possibly, albeit it may he may retire with unfinished business, really. Possibly one of the best horses we've had around in recent years, and I mean that sincerely, and perhaps just hasn't had the chance because physically he's had ailments. He bled last year in the RSA. He's also had breathing issues. But John keeps going back to this quote, he's the best horse I've ever trained, he's the best horse I've ever trained. Now, you can't just be swayed like that, but there's almost a twinkle in his eye, and he definitely showed something on the track last time in the Irish Gold Cup. That was the most convincing performance from him I've seen over fences, despite the fact it ended up with him tipping up at the last. He jumped way better, he got into a beautiful rhythm, came right round the outside, and yes, it was a bit of a muddling finish, but he was threatening very much to be banged there with the principals when he tipped up. And maybe he'd have wilted because maybe the physical problems would have re-risen, but I'd be confident that he'd have been placed at the very least, and he could even have won the race. And had he stood up and won the race, we wouldn't be talking about 20's chances, was like 16's now.
So from more of that, who has a little bit to prove, arguably, to Native River, who has been flawless this season, Hennessy winner, Welsh national winner, showed he's got speed in the Denman Chase, but are there still some concerns that he has to find something to win the Gold Cup? I
think there are. You pick through his form. Hennessy's nothing flash. He was really good in it, holding Carol's Destrier, but it's only Carol's Destrier. And then he went to Chepstow in a race that, in essence, he was fully entitled to win because the restrictions to the weights in the race meant that he was effectively off the same mark as when he won the Hennessy. So like a winner without a penalty. And what was striking was the burst of acceleration, if you can call it that in a Welsh national, that sent him clear in the straight before he was closed down at the finish. But he was a handicap and he was just beating Rasdam Ray. And then he's gone to Newbury in the Denman, and people were eulogising, frothing over the fact that he'd shown more pace than norm and a different dimension to his game. But he beat a lame Bristol de Mai and Le Mercury, who's so far short of champion stay and chase class that he'd have to start now if they were running the race. So much so I like this horse, and similar to Augusta Kate mentioned earlier, for the first time I saw the horse in a chase, in her case in a bumper, I thought he was a really exceptional talent. But the price he is now, against a horse like Jackadam, who we know has been there and done it and has better quality form, whichever way you look at it, Jackadam would have won those two races off the handicap mark he was off. And yeah, I do think there's still a slight bridge for him to cross. If I've said this a few times now, but if I was to draw which horse who isn't Jackadam and has been there and done it before, if you're going to draw a Gold Cup horse, you draw Native River, old-fashioned chaser who stays thoroughly, basically a sound jumper and races prominently. It is Native River, but in terms of form in the book, I think he's still got maybe 5 or 6 at least to find with Jackadam, and that matters whichever way you say. Whether you think he's a perfect type for a Gold Cup or not, he's a horse who's priced up as if the improvement's already been shown, but it hasn't.
Okay, now another runner with a son next to the trainer's name is Outlander, runs for the Red Hot Gordon Elliott. Won the Lexus Chase over Christmas. How good is that form?
It's muddling for me. I was saying with Jackadam earlier, despite the fact it was 3 miles on softish ground in Ireland, it became more of a test of speed than stamina. I thought Outlander did them for an ability to quicken, really. He's a horse who's fully effective at 2.5 miles, whereas Jackadam got caught behind rivals, was rather flat-footed as the gallop lifted, but was passing horses and finished with a fair bit more to give. Be very confident Jackadam would reverse form. I just don't picture a scenario where we look back in future years and think, oh yeah, do you remember the 2017 Gold Cup where Outlander battled on really strongly to deny Jackadam? I just don't see it. Maybe I'll be left with egg on my face, but maybe I'll have to change the Wikipedia entry if it comes true.
Some bold statements coming here. Next up is Safir de Rere. He's quite light in the, he's an honest horse, solid at Kelso, but is he really good enough to win a Gold Cup?
No, I don't think if you'd asked me the question after he was put up such a brilliant performance as a novice at Aintree, I'd have probably said yes, but it's been a stuttering road ever since. Possibly should have won the handicap won by Foxtail Hill on Timeform day at Cheltenham, a trials day, but caught rather out of his ground as the leader went clear. But even that form would leave him with a long way behind the principals, and add into the mix that he'll be going an extra couple of furlongs and a half as well, so it'll be a different query for him stamina-wise.
Another one who's very much on the up is Sizing John, who won the Irish Gold Cup last time. That was a career best, and a lot of people fancy him today. Did that Irish Gold Cup win put him in the top class bracket, and can he compete with the main runners in the betting at least?
I think he can generally, but whether he can compete with them over a Gold Cup trip is a different matter. Now, he's a horse who we know can show top class form at 2 miles. He showed that when chasing home Douvan, and he's now showing top class form over staying trips, but he's no Corto Star. It would be rare for a horse to have that sort of versatility and quality, really, to be able to adapt and show peak form at both distances, both extremes of distances. And much like the Lexus had been, the Irish Gold Cup was a slowly run race with the emphasis on speed. We know he's got plenty of it. Yes, it was only late in the day that he got on top, but I don't think he was getting on because he's a dour sluggard that just outstayed them. I think there's an element of his pace counting for something in that race. And again, he'll be asked questions here that he's never been asked before. Can he battle through them? If he does, and if he's a horse who can run to mid-160s over 2 miles and run to something like 170 over 3 1/4, then hats off to him. But it's an achievement I don't think he's got in his locker.
Moving on to Smad Place, another very good horse in his day, a very likeable sort, and he likes to make the running, and we've seen yesterday how much of a nuisance little Rockefeller made of himself by setting the pace. Can he do something similar in this race?
Suspect he'll just be setting it up for something else. He's proven to be in Gold Cups to not be good enough to win them. Same last year. Why should he reverse form with Jack Adam? He'd have been beaten by Q Card last year. He's probably not even arriving in the same nick as he was 12 months ago, so you basically have to put a line through him straight away.
And last but not least, we've got a little bit of history. Lizzie Kelly, only the second lady rider ever to ride in the Gold Cup, and she's got a decent enough ride in T for 2. Won the Corto Star as a novice. Has he got a bit to find?
Yeah, more than a bit. I think he's got a lot to find. Lizzie Kelly I think presumably had the choice of the 2 Nick Williams horses earlier in the week in the Fred Winter. Either chose wrongly or whatever, but obviously Richard Johnson was the one that steered Home Flying Tiger to win, so she'll be looking to prove a point after that. But she's on the wrong horse to do it. He's just not good enough.
Okie dokie. So it's to summarise, it's Jack Adam for you.
Yeah, play the race. Jack Adam with keep more of that on side. Save material for definite.
Okay, so on to the Amateurs Gold Cup as it's called every single year, and we've got a horse going for the treble here in On the Fringe.
Yeah, amazing that, isn't
it? He's 12 years old, but he's got the red hot Jamie Codd. He's having a great week on board.
Yeah.
He seemingly is in a classier field this year. Has he got a bit too much? Is it a bit too much on his plate this time?
No, I'm in a quandary here because not long ago I asked which is the worst shorty of the festival.
Yeah.
And it was purely price, and On the Fringe was like 6-4, 11-8. I'm like, well, he's brilliant, but he's 12, and he faces a few horses here who've got a sort of different dimension, a different form line. A bit like, Harry yesterday. As it turned out, beating the Brits wasn't enough because there was a horse with a different form angle that came to gub him in Nichols Canyon. The 2 this year, Asta Weatherman, who's an unexposed rules horse who was good in points and was excellent at Wincanton, and Wonderful Charm, who's a formerly high-class operator in conventional company for Paul Nichols. He's kept with him, kept him for Hunter Chases, and he's looked really, really good, but he's got slight wind problems by all accounts, and he'll have to last out. So, having thought 6-4 was too skinny, I'm sort of thinking like the price is now at 15-8, 7-4. It isn't that bad, but I can't go whole completely the other way around 360 and change my view. So what I was proposing this is a halfway house, and we'll back paint the clouds each way. Third in the race previously, probably on ground that wasn't ideal for him. He's top of the ground horse because I think 3 1/4 the Gold Cup distance stretches him really. But he'll have a better chance of seeing it. He's probably a stronger stayer than Wonderful Charm, or close to being a stronger stayer than Wonderful Charm. Asta Weatherman lacks experience for a race of this calibre. That's a niggle with him. And On the Fringe, he's so professional. He'll probably run to a similar rating as last year. It's a case of can something beat him. But if we can get Paint the Clouds in the 3, we'll be getting paid out at a similar price to if you're back on the fringe to win the race. So let's go with that.
And another familiar name quickly is Pasha de Polder. Can he cope with the crushing loss of Victoria Pendleton in this race?
That was one of the highlights of the festival last season. That stirring finish. What a great race game. I don't want to sound patronising, but hugging the inside throughout, that was brave. A lot of senior jockeys try and stay out of the trouble. Victoria Pendleton went straight up the inner. He finished with running left. Maybe she wasn't that effective off the bridle, but I thought it was a perfectly brilliant ride for a rider of such inexperience.
How many rides had she had? About 6 under rules, if that.
Well, it started at Cheltenham where the slight mistakes knocked her off, and it shows so much what a brilliant athlete she is, Olympian as we know. Sad that she's not here. Pasha de Polder, if he runs to his best, and he probably showed last year in a Mudland Renewal that he stays the trip, has place claims, but he's got work to do on the fringe. He's got work to do with Paint the Clouds.
Okay, so Paint the Clouds each way there, and on to another tricky one, the Martin Pipe. Where on earth do you start in this race?
Probably the top of the market, because you've got 2 horses here that have the potential to win the race by a convincing margin, really. And we know it's open and it's competitive. Lots of horses that are interesting generally. Think of like Fontana, for instance, same mark as when he won the county a few years back. Q-Star Civiler could be on a higher mark than 138 because I think he's improved since he was in the frame in the Fred Winter last season. Bear in mind he did that over 2 miles on decent ground when he's more about stamina. I heard Elliot being pretty bullish about Run for Dave, but I'm getting this down to something of a match between No Comment and Battleford. Battleford has more downside because he's not taken to hurdling as naturally as I thought he would do. His jumping's been a concern, but it was much more like it last time. Just touched off by Ballyandy in the champion bumper here last year. The only time he's been in a big field scenario, so it clearly suits him. And he was only on his second start there, so it was some effort under the circumstances. I agree that the crop of bumper horses from last year weren't outstanding by any means, but Ballyandy was still good enough to win a Betfair hurdle of 135. Battleford starts live in handicaps of a similar rating with a claimer taking 5 off. It's a pretty simple scenario. If he shows his bumper form and he jumps fluently, he's going to win this race. As I say, niggles are his jumping. Other one is No Comment, who somehow has a rating that he does, despite the fact he's there on a huge winning streak. Think back to his bumper form. He was strongly backed in the Punchestown race and went on to beat Monolly, who Timeform now rate 145 over hurdles. He goes in the Albert Bartlett. That's top end bumper form, that whichever way you look at it. He, unlike Battleford, has conspicuously taken well to hurdling, bar one blip at Aintree when he was beaten by the Skeleton horse. He hasn't put a foot wrong, and his latest performance, beating Manila Award at Plumpton, might have not looked that much at the time, but since then Manila Award's gone and won the EBF final at Sandown, so it's given him a timely boost. Handicapper can't have his say now either. The weights are already out. He can't reassess him based on what Manila Award has done subsequently. So I think he's been let in lightly, and I think I'm going to play the race pretty simply. I'm backing No Comment and Battleford, and hoping one of them delivers, because if they do, I think they'll win.
Well, I personally think Panos Chocolat has a tasty price at 100. Sorry.
Might will eat it for breakfast, don't worry.
Moving on to the last race of the entire festival, and it's a very classy name at the top of the market in La Presienne. Yeah. I know you're sweet on him, so I'll let you go. Yeah,
I just think he's an ideal type for this race. It's a race that seldom has a really progressive youngster in it. It has been won by novices down the years, but it's not since probably Moscow Flyer has it been a race that's been a precursor to being a champion chase contender. I'm not saying he's that good, La Presienne, but he's a graded performer with really good novice form. Think about Utoxeter race where he was in and around Charbel and top notch.
That form's worked out.
Oh, yeah, it's worked out tremendously well. It's probably the best novice chase we've ever seen at Utoxeter, and his jumping is a slight niggle. That's the only thing. He went left at Exeter, but so was Lammy Surge, the horse you described as lovable, who I hate. But it's a similar scenario really to the preceding race, to the Martin Pipe, that you've got one horse in here who, if he puts it together, I think he'll win. he's not that short a price. And we're not talking about 9-4 chance here. He's clear favourite, but back in win only, strong pace will suit. I think he's a 2 miler rather than a 2.5 miler. There's nothing wrong with his form. He could conceivably be a graded open horse next year. So why can't he take in a handicap en route? I certainly prefer his claims to Dodging Bullets and Old Champion Chase. He's going in the other direction, and it's quite a nice meeting, that, isn't it? It's like the handing over of the baton in the Nichols stable. Like, here's the next wave of our good 2 milers. It's Le President, and I hope he can take this en route to making up into that graded performer. I think he could be.
Is Dodging Bullets chucked in on the mark he's in, or has the stuff the form he's shown of late mean he's just going backwards?
I couldn't back him. I mean, yeah, he's been given a real chance by the handicapper, but he's been showing no enthusiasm or zest for racing. I never really liked him anyway. I thought it was a poor Champion Chase. He won scrambling against Summersby, and I'd be again. I've almost considered that horse now. He's unbackable, and if he wins a race, fair enough. But I think he's on such a slide that I can't really be with him.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. And your nap is definitely the soy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But Jackadam's going to take some shift. I like that play, actually. The Jackadam, more of that against the field in the Gold Cup. We've got the very solid angle, and we've got the potential fly that could win it. Whatever you do, I hope you have a good day and a profitable day. And if you are behind, hopefully we can get out of trouble. And I haven't mentioned your blazer. I forgot to mention at the start of the race. This is a man who dresses in style for the Gold Cup. Yeah, as you know, it's a night out in Halifax tonight. So dressing to impress. Probably not impressing. I probably look absolutely preposterous. But if I don't wear this occasionally, then the person who bought me, my other half, will treat me like dirt. So best do it to please her as well. Well, if you haven't been to Halifax, it is the poshest Weatherspoons I've ever seen. So you look right at home in there, really. Yeah. Like, compared to Chorley Weatherspoons. It's absolutely... I walked in there, I was gobsmacked. Like, what is this? That's as good as it gets in the facts, let's be honest, for a night out. But anyway, we'll have a few drinks. I think a few of us deserve it after the week we've had, you included, Nick. And once I've finished typing up the Fox until later, I'm not saying I'm off the leash by any means, but we can have a couple of pints to relax. We can salute Jackadam's 5-length victory in the Gold Cup. And I don't like half the time anti-post positions, but I mean a fairly good one with him, having backed him in October. And if he does the God's own to me and cruelly denies me a place at least, then... You'll be drinking a few more pints tonight. Yeah, I might be drinking water. I'll be that skin. Anyway, let's hope it goes better than that. Cheers, Dan. Thank you, Nick. See you later.